In your running backs that are undervalued, I feel like the first one on the list that I'm looking at right now is right on the border of that undervalued. If his ADP was one spot higher, he'd probably be in the perfect spot.
I don't know. Christian McCaffrey, he's the RB5 consensus at Fantasy Pros. I think he has to be no lower than 2 because, first of all, where is the discount coming from? Is it coming from the fact that he has only played, what is it, 8 games over the last couple of years? Or I think it was more than that. But he's missed a ton of games over these past 2 years. And there's a discount going on because of that. But I think people are discounting him too much, considering that every running back is an injury risk. Like every single running back is an injury risk. So then you say, okay, well, take out the injuries for a second and just because every running back is an injury risk and just look at the production. He put up 20 or more half PPR points in 4 of the 5 games he finished last year, as in, the ones that he didn't get hurt and leave early. And then in each of the 2 years before that, he was not only the top overall running back in fantasy, but he was by at least 4 points per game over the next closest running back. And he was doing the same thing last year. He just happened to get hurt and leave 2 games early. That's it. That's the only things that have changed. And now we're bumping him down to 5. To me, I just don't get it, especially where, like Derrick Henry's also coming off an injury, but Christian McCaffrey has shown he can outscore him already. Dalvin Cook gets hurt a lot too. He's not like the Beckett of health, and he's going above McCaffrey now. Like these guys that are going above him, it just doesn't really make sense. And it's just that people are scared off because it's been 2 straight years of injuries, but there's a time to be worried about injuries. Like Saquon Barkley, I was yelling for people not to touch him last year. Everyone just thought he would go back to normal, but this is different. There's no reason to expect Christian McCaffrey to get any more hurt than any other year. And if healthy, he's probably the top running back even over Taylor, because Taylor put up such an outlier year, whereas like McCaffrey's already done it twice. So I don't know if you could call it an outlier where he just completely destroyed every other player in fantasy in terms of points per game. So yeah, I think 5 is too low. I think 4 would be too low.
RB15, playoff Lenny, Leonard Fournette. This guy landed in a supreme spot, and a lot of guys land in supreme spots. What he's done is not fuck it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And so everyone was kind of out on him after, the Jaguar failures with Jacksonville, but playing with Tom Brady really helps. And just first of all, look at the numbers. He's going as the RB15 on average. He was the RB7 last year in both total production and points per game. Then he got 12 million guaranteed on a 3-year deal, really a 2-year deal, but still 12 million guaranteed is a lot for a running back. They replaced Ronald Jones with a rookie who the scouting report is he struggles in pass protection. So there's a chance Fournette sees an even larger workload this year than he did last year, where again, he was the RB7. He was a top 10 running back, a top 8 running back last season. So yeah, I don't get the RB15. I know he's age 27 now. That's usually when running backs start to decline, maybe a year later. But I think he still has at least this one more good year in him. There's nothing to suggest that he was slowing down. And there's no injury to speak of. Like, there's really nothing. I don't understand why people are so low on him.
Another one that people are undervaluing, according to you, RB22, James Conner.
Yeah, I mean, we know they had to choose between Conner and Edmonds, or they felt they did. They let Edmonds walk. He goes to Miami. So now James Conner's here. And I know they just signed Darrell Williams, but like these guys, somebody will have to be the backup. But Conner in 5 games without Edmonds last year, 21.6 touches per game, 96.6 scrimmage yards per game, 1.4 touchdowns per game. Oh, and if you watched him play, he looked like one of the best running backs in the league, pretty much week in and week out, but especially in those games where he was the feature back. Like this guy, he was giving them more juice than Kyler most of that year. He was giving him more juice than DeAndre Hopkins. Like, he was the best player on that offense for stretches, for much of the year. He was a complete beast, and they paid him. And all we've seen from him, when there's no like guy to like form a true committee with, and there's not gonna be, and there's no one on that roster that would be right now. He's been a 20+ touch guy, and we saw him do it in Pittsburgh too. So it's not even like he's done it in two different places where he's had the starter's role and performed at a very high level. So, and again, yes, he's been injury prone at times. Every running back is. So I don't see any reason to discount him for that. I know he's had a couple of injury plagued years in Pittsburgh, but this guy's just balls.
So let's run through. We can do this kind of quick just because these are the guys you're down on. The running backs that are dropping. Let's start with Antonio Gibson. Right now, ADP, running back 12. What's your view on him?
Yeah, I think he should just be maybe 4, 5, 6 spots lower, kind of around where he finished last year. He was RB 18 in points per game and half PPR last year. And that was with JD McKissic playing only 11 games. And I think that's kind of the issue with Gibson, is that he's really not ever going to be like that true 3-down back, not only because of McKissic's presence, but also because he really wore down last year as the season went on. And you could see a kind of clear correlation between, as the workload increased, the yards per carry and the yards after contact started to drop. So his first year in the league, he had 206 touches and he averaged 5.1 yards per touch. Then that went up to 300 touches and he lost, close to a full yard per touch. He dropped to 4.4. So I just think he's going a little too high. They also drafted the rookie Robinson, and he could actually steal a few like short yardage carries and things like that. So I just don't think he's a RB1 in fantasy. I think he's RB2, and he's being drafted like a low RB1.
So as many people know, in keeper leagues, you always want to draft the injured players from last year. So one of the bigger draft and stash players from last year, J.K. Dobbins, I see his ADP is number 20. You think that's too high? That's interesting. I would love to hear what's your view on him right now.
Yeah. So listen, another great player, J.K. Dobbins. I mean, from what we've seen out of him anyway, very talented player, good runner, works in their system. But when you're talking about fantasy and you're talking about an RB2, a guy that you're going to count on a start week in, week out, a guy that you're going to draft in the first, 5 rounds, you want him to be more of a sure thing, and you don't want him to be kind of overly reliant on any one thing. And I just think Dobbins is going to be very reliant on touchdowns and game script and things like that, because he only averaged 1.2 receptions per game, in his lone year that we've seen him. And we know Baltimore, they're not really throwing to the back. That's just not how their offense goes. Greg Roman is still there. I don't expect that to change. You also got to factor in that they always kind of have been a committee team. Gus Edwards is still going to mix in and so not just like mix in, he's going to get a substantial workload as well. And then you also just have the fact that Dobbins isn't healthy here. He messed up his knee last year and he's still working his way back. And we still have no guarantees that he's healthy as of right now. So I just think all those factors combined, he has a lot of bust potential, taking him in the top 20 running backs. I just think, the lack of receiving usage combined with the fact that with the health combined with the committee, there's just a lot of question marks to be taking him in a spot where you could just you don't necessarily have to take a different running back, but I think it's a greght spot. Those 4th, 5th, 6th, those middle rounds, draft wide receivers, get a top 6, top 7 tight end before they dry up, because you just don't need to be taking these frozen pond running backs where, 1 or 2 of them could hit, but you're looking at a lot more of a higher bust rate at that position, given the players that are going there compared to receivers and tight ends.
And also right now, it's crazy to me that his ADP is 23, but Damien Harris is being the 23rd drafted running back right now. What's your view on him going into this?
It's kind of similar to Dobbins. He averaged 1.2 receptions per game, and he scored 15 touchdowns last year on 202 attempts, which is amazing. But like, think about it this way: would you draft LeGarrette, like peak LeGarrette Blount in New England, in the top 20 as an RB2? I don't think you would, because he doesn't catch the ball. It's the same thing here, and we just don't know what is going to come with Ramondre Stevenson. Like those guys at times are splitting the snaps evenly. And it just so happened that they both, were able to be productive at times because there was no James White in that mix for much of the year. And he's going to be back as well. So now you could have, it could be like a 40-40-20 or like a 35-35-30 split in snaps between Harris, Stevenson, and White. They're just, that's on top of just the fact that touchdowns really unpredictable, unsustainable. And that's what he's going to rely on. So, if he was going, outside, maybe 30th, 31st, where you could take a swing at, hopefully he gets another double-digit touchdown year, I'd be all in. But RB23, I don't think I can rely on this guy all year as a starting running back.